Hello. So I was asked to host a workshop for all of you on how to navigate burnout and motivation burnout. So I'm assuming that by this point in the year, you guys are probably feeling a little tired, and that's okay. It happens. So I'm here to help kind of just guide you guys on, what exactly is motivation and burnout, and what can you do to kind of mitigate the effects of that, and to stay active during the fall and the rest of the year and the future when you're future higher position CSULB for those of you who are running for those. So just really quickly, introduction to myself. My name is Nguyen, as most of you already know. I'm a 4th year psychology major with a Law and Society minor at UC Riverside. I kind of just laid out like my list of like credentials, just for context of like, how I kind of navigated my own issues of motivation and burnout. Way back when, in 2018, 2019, I was on a board for my home club as the graphics and media relations chair. At the same time, I was the laws and regulations community creative assistant. And during that time, I was also like, obviously a student, I had work, and I was also an intern for like a social media thing. And so for that, like I was always planning events and traveling to like Inglewood every other week, which is like pretty far drive for those of you who aren't really sure. I did plan that. And then between terms, or between my term as Lieutenant Governor and the Kiwanis Family and Foundations liaison, I was switching jobs. So at the time I was kind of like working 2 jobs and then still doing like internship stuff, freelancing, doing all kinds of stuff. And it's kind of crazy. But hopefully by the end of this, you'll learn something. And before we actually get into the meat of like the workshop, I do want to preface and say that I do my workshops a little bit differently from how most people do it for CSULB, in that I do it more in like a Socratic seminar style. So whenever I do ask questions, I do expect everyone to, well, not everyone, but I expect most of you to participate and to be actively engaging. Most of what you'll get out of this workshop is what you'll learn from each other and by participating. And so I can only do so much to teach you guys, but you need to be able to teach yourself as well. Likewise, if no one wants to answer a question, I will start calling on people. This is gonna be a class where your participation matters. Your grade is on the line. So be sure to participate. It's also really funny watching people like panic and stuff. But anyways, my first question for all of you, we're getting started. What is motivation and how do you define that in your own life? And then also, like, you don't have to use the raise hand feature or anything. Feel free to just kind of like unmute and like answer.
I think motivation is a force that drives you to do something.
Yeah, that's a good definition. Are there any other ideas of like motivation?
Motivation is what gets you out of your bed instead of lazing around.
That's a good one. That's definitely relatable. Anyone else?
I think motivation is I was gonna say I think motivation. Okay, I was gonna say I think motivation is Shia LaBeouf standing on my shoulder telling me to just do it.
All right.
I was gonna say motivation is like kind of like a desire or will to do something or get something that you want.
All right, Queen. All right, so yeah, these are all like really great definitions of like what motivation is and stuff. And textbook definition, it's just like the psychological desire or just something that really pushes us to be able to do the work that we do, whether it's getting out of bed or doing your homework or in this case being a board member. And after a while, like motivation kind of like falters and we start to experience something called burnout. And I kind of want to see like how do you guys define burnout? What is burnout to you? And what might you think are like some symptoms of burnout?
Overwhelmed.
Yes, definitely.
Not being able to put my 100% into something.
That's a good one. And we'll definitely be talking about like the kind of like 100% like into everything a little bit later, but that's definitely like something to think about as well. And then anything else?
Since we just talked about motivation, I feel like burnout is losing that motivation and then losing that desire to like keep going or do what you want.
Yeah. So these are all, again, really great ways of defining motivation and burnout. In particular, burnout is a psychological state. See, I'm applying my knowledge from my degree. But burnout is essentially like the psychological state that we get to when, you know, our mental, physical, spiritual needs aren't being met due to a variety of different stressors. And you know, those stressors can be pretty much about anything. It could be something happening in your personal life, whether it's family or you just have a lot of things going on and it's difficult to talk with other people, or you have a lot of schoolwork, you have a lot of things, there's a lot of things going on. And those stressors really impact not only, again, our motivation to do stuff, but they have a lot of health impacts as well. And so with those two kind of ideas in mind, what makes you motivated to do the work that you do, and what are some ways that you stay motivated? We're into the tough questions now, huh? Everyone's looking like, oh.
All right. So personally, I think the best way to stay motivated is to remember that everything is done with pacing. I think pacing is one of the best ways to not be overwhelmed and to remember that things build themselves over time. They aren't made in an instant. And for me, what makes me motivated specifically to do my work is remembering the community that I care about. For me, I'm a very relationship-oriented person, and remembering that everything I'm doing will affect the people I care about makes me want to work hard for them.
Yeah, that's great. And to kind of build off that, at least with like my own anecdote in terms of how I, you know, get and stay motivated with whatever it is I'm doing. At least during my time in Circle K, one of the main things that really drove me, especially during my year as a lieutenant governor, was like this always knowing that like I am making an impact on the people that I'm serving, whether it's just being there for them as a friend, as a leader, or even just like being a source of inspiration for what they want to become as a leader, as a person. And you know, obviously like those aren't like things that I consciously like always am thinking about. It definitely gets hard to always think like, oh, I'm doing like so much for the community, because you know, especially as board members, you'll get to a point, if not already then, where you're kind of like, I don't really know if what I'm doing is making an impact, and that's okay to, you know, think about and to kind of feel. But for me, in terms of like some of the ways that I stay motivated is talking to people and letting out like my frustrations, my emotions, because you know, everything that you're feeling and everything you're going through is valid, and whether it's like you're experiencing like a huge like high of like, oh my god, like I'm so motivated, I love the stuff that I do, I can't wait to plan the next service at Audrey. You know, that's something that like we can share with other people, and that keeps us motivated, because you know, when people get excited to hear about things that we're talking about, at least for me personally, that feels really good. But yeah, what about some of you guys?
If I can answer this, I would agree with Audrey with the pacing part of it. I feel like staying motivated is one way, and just being consistent is a huge way to just maintain that motivation. And then I feel like it's also something that has to be something that you're interested in from the beginning, and then like just thinking about how it affects everyone in the long run, and about what you're doing in the community for the community, and as well as the people that you're surrounding yourself with, and knowing that they're always there for you, like to help you and everything like that. I feel like that's a good part that would make me motivated. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Those are all like fantastic points, and you know, things that might work for you, and of course everyone else as well. One more person, and then we'll move on to the next set of questions.
I think another thing that helps at least me stay motivated along with everything else that everyone said, is being able to look back at like how far I've come now, looking at like the obstacles that I faced before and how I was able to overcome them and come as far as how I am now, helps me to realize that like whatever obstacles I'm facing now or I will face in the future, I'm going to make it to wherever I want to go.
Yeah, fantastic. And again, just building off of that, you know, we're constantly growing, constantly learning, and just kind of reflecting and doing a little bit of introspection every now and again. Definitely very helpful. Before I move on, just want to see if there's anyone else. If not, 5, 4, 3. All right.
Wait, Ren's race is
Olivia. Oh, Ren's.
The raise hand function is right next to the chat function. But I guess, okay, actually, no, I also answer the question though. I'd say like, I'm personally speaking, the thing that that keeps me motivated are a lot of times it's both just like wanting to like help improve just on things that or just different things that people kind of like built upon in like the past, like especially for our community, but also like just seeing how people it like how like kind of like the work we do, how people kind of makes people's lives a little easier and just more enjoyable, and seeing kind of like the end result of that work kind of make it just like whether it's like a social or like a service event or something in between, just make like being like someone's like highlight, like in like the week or like for like the day. I think that's always like that in itself is a reward.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then really quickly before I move on to the next question, I think that a lot of us like, maybe our main source of motivation is something like on a more like macro scale, where it's like the effect that we have on other people, or in the long term, how what we do makes an impact in our communities and stuff. But that might not be applicable for everyone. Some of us might have to look forward to micro level motivational items, and that's okay. We all have different things that drive us to do what we need to do, and whether that be just maybe getting out of bed motivates you to do what you need to do for the day, or getting brunch with the gals. Sometimes like when I'm really going through it, like even just getting my coffee for the day is enough to get me going. And I'm really bad with coffee now. I get headaches if I don't get coffee, but just kind of emphasizing that like micro level things are just as equally important as the macro level. And so the next question I have is, what does your work ethic consist of, and do you manage your time effectively? Yeah, just kind of thinking about that, and to kind of segue into it. For me personally, my work ethic is a little sporadic at times. Really depends on like what I'm working. For example, when it came to like Circle K, that was always something that I prioritize in terms of just getting done. There's a lot more pressure, of course, like being lieutenant governor, because like have phone calls with like your advisor and stuff, and they're always like checking. But I think Olivia can kind of attest like how I was. I was always just making sure like I got everything done that I needed to ahead of time. Everything was. I'm not really like much of a last minute person. Olivia has also seen it where like if something is last minute, I kind of like lose my mind. I get it like crazy. But that's how I personally operate in regards to like Circle K. But when it comes to school, not so much. I have a really bad habit of pushing off my like essays to the last minute. Me like stress texting Olivia and Maddie at like 8 in the morning because I need to write my essay that's due at like 3 p.m. 3 times in a row. But we all have different things that we do for different tasks, and how we manage our time might vary. But yeah, what about you guys?
Oh, for me, I do things in like whole days. Like if I do like homework, I'll do like a whole day of homework and no breaks, no TV, no nothing. And then I can have like a whole day of like TV. It's just like an off and on thing. And I feel very motivated that way. And I think that it's very efficient because I've been doing it for a while and I like how it works. Like just like 20 hours of studying or like 10 hours of studying. Yeah, that's my way.
Huh. That's honestly pretty impressive. I can't sit down for more than like an hour. Cool, yeah. Anyone anyone else? Yeah, really though, like 1 hour of study, 23 hours of sleep. Oh my God. Anyone else want to share how their work ethic looks? And it's okay too if you don't have like the best work ethic. We're not, no one's perfect. No one's gonna
I guess
share.
I'll share so we have more people.
Yeah.
So my work ethic is very much focused on getting things done early because I hate worrying about things because I kind of have like anxiety and stuff. And then when I worry about things, I kind of just want to ignore them instead of actually doing them. So I like just doing things and getting them done. I usually prioritize smaller tasks before larger tasks because I kind of think of it as like a giant tree. And instead of attacking the tree at the top, I just start chipping away at the bottom and then everything comes crashing down. That kind of sounds bad, but I mean like in the sense of the tasks being done. That's what I mean. And yeah, like I actually have a huge no procrastination thing just because I know how stressful it is. So it's like this personal discipline of always making sure I set deadlines and actually do things on time so I don't have to worry about them. And I'm like 80 to 90% effective on that. And that like includes schoolwork also. So it's nice.
That's honestly, again, like really impressive. I really wish that were me. But yeah, one more person. Miss Chang, why don't you share?
My work ethic doesn't exist. I feel like I feel like for CKI I'm very like organized and stuff like that, and like I have everything like written down. But with school, I'm a whole mess, and I do everything on like my Google Calendar, and like set reminders and stuff. But like if it like I guess if I don't meet the like deadline, I would say, and it pushes back, I'm just like I guess we'll like have like another day. But yeah, I think in terms of school, I like procrastinate a lot. And I probably like, you guys know my sleeping schedule is like horrible, but I feel like I work best at like 1 a.m. So sometimes I would procrastinate until like midnight. I think even like high school, like I would start homework at midnight. And then, yes, that's why I did not want to talk for this, because I don't think my time management is that well. I mean, I still get things done on time. I just procrastinate like really bad. But yeah.
Yeah, and there's no shame, and of course, in not always having the best work ethic or managing our time effectively with everything that we have going on in our lives. Again, no one's perfect, and we will kind of discuss a little more about like the whole like procrastination thing and the all or none like mentality when it comes to like work ethic and stuff. But the next set of questions. Are you taking time for yourself? Are you meeting your mental, physiological, and spiritual needs? If that is applicable. And I feel like I know the answer for most of you for the first one, but feel free to share.
Time for myself? Who is she? Mental, physiological, and spiritual needs? She walked out the door a long time. I try to take time for myself and meet my mental, physiological, and spiritual needs. But I will be honest, they have not been my besties recently. So, yes, there you go.
And it's great to be able to recognize that like we're not taking care of ourselves. And I will admit, like even like for me personally, like when I was Circle K, like oh my God, my life was like, if I don't get my Circle K things done, I don't get to eat, I don't get to do nothing. No schoolwork, nothing. I was horrible. And sometimes we just kind of get like put ourselves in that like mental state where it's like, oh my god, like I have so much thing to do. I think I need to care of it first. And we don't, take time for ourselves. But anyone else?
Oh, for me, my mental, physiological, and spiritual needs are super low. Like all I need is like a 3-hour anime or manga sesh, and I think I'm good to go.
I respect that. I really do. We'd love to see it. Let's hear from Miss Audrey.
I also tried to hide from this question too because my answer is a no. So I think my board. I think you guys all like remember me saying that I'm gonna take a break month in July / kind of August, and that clearly didn't happen. I don't know. Like I really do say that I want to try to take time for myself, but every time I do try to take time for myself, I start panicking. Like all I can think about is shit, I have so much stuff to do. Or, if I don't go to X, Y, and Z, then like, what am I doing on board? Or like, I don't know. I go like have mental breakdowns at 4 a.m. and then I'll send certain people hella long texts. But yeah, I guess I'm a little bit hypocritical because I talked about pacing earlier. But you see, I'm good about pacing work. I'm not sure if I'm good about pacing work with time for myself. As for the meeting mental, physiological, and spiritual needs, yes and no. Since I do send my like really long texts at 4 a.m., I guess like I kind of meet it where if I want affection, I will let people know because I'm a very affectionate person. Like I'm like a dog. Like I need affection almost 24/7, and I think almost everyone on this board can tell. But yeah, sometimes it's hard for me to talk about stuff like the emotions that I'm feeling, because sometimes I'm too scared about burdening other people, or I'm scared about breaking down in front of people publicly, because it's hard to keep up it's hard to like feel the expectation of having to keep up an image versus also being okay with being vulnerable. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, of course. Definitely like, I think we all kind of like subconsciously like forget to take care of ourselves because, we might always feel like, again, this need to prioritize everything else in our lives first before ourselves. And, there's no shame in doing that. But I think the important thing is that we're able to recognize it and we're able to, take some steps in fixing that. And again, we'll kind of dig a little more deeper in just a little bit on that. But before we move on into the next slide, which has more questions, do you again want to, not again, but I want to emphasize that like, with you guys being aboard, this is a safe space, and it's probably a little weird with like me. I always kind of feel weird when like I'm always asked to like open up and be vulnerable in front of people, and so if you don't feel too comfortable with sharing something around me, then it's okay. But if you would like to, then feel free to. Yes. Also, I just want to say, when Audrey's a dog, I really just thought like she's got to bust out barking.
She starts going, yeah, as for my spiritual and mental, bark, 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 bark.
Really though, I really thought she was going to like, you can think of me like as a dog. Woof.
Woof.
Anyways, so the next set of questions I have kind of built off of like what Audrey was kind of talking about, about the dogs. But like, do you guys prioritize Circle K over everything else? And when you do take time for yourself or when you do take breaks, do you feel guilty for doing that? Why? Well, actually, we'll get into the why question, but do you feel guilty for taking breaks, and do you prioritize Circle K over everything else? and like before, like my own personal anecdote, I feel like I'm just like kind of like shoving myself in there. You guys probably like, what the hell? But for me, like again, especially like when I was lieutenant governor, it was always just like, if I don't like do my Circle K work, then kind of have to face like the scary reality of people like being like talking behind my back or saying like, oh, like you're not really like doing much, or like he's not even like that good like as a lieutenant governor, or like just kind of like some bullshit like that. And so like I would always like make it like a top thing I needed to do every day. If I didn't get that done, I couldn't really sleep. And especially like during fall quarter, which is, you know, the point of this workshop for you guys to prepare for the fall quarter, is that like for me, like I had noticed like my grades were kind of slipping in the fall, and that kind of like put me in a rut where I was like, you know, like why do I feel like I'm not as smart as like I actually am? That sounded so bad. But like, you know, I know my own abilities, and I wasn't really meeting that kind of that expectation for myself, especially because I was taking all operatives that quarter too, and I was going through a lot of personal hardships as well, and a lot of times like when I did take breaks, I would always kind of feel like I really shouldn't be doing this, like I have so much to do. It was always just like I have so much to do, like I need to get it done. And I think that like why question is a little bit difficult to answer. So I'll share that a little bit in a minute, but what about you guys?
Oh, so like I grew up with a dad that was like super like, I'm the man and I'll do everything in the household. So at the end of the day, he's always complaining about how he does everything and how he's burnt out. So learning from that, I always prioritize taking breaks, and I take more breaks than I should. Like I value mental health, like health super high. So I think I take a lot more breaks than I should have, but I don't really feel guilty because at the end of the day, I feel like I'm super on top of things. Like my mind is super refreshed. I'm in the best of my best attitude to work with people and to work on things.
That's really good. Just keep impressing me here. Yeah, that's great. Honestly, like if you're able to really prioritize everything really well, and I know like for me personally, again, now that I'm doing less and able to kind of reevaluate everything, I definitely am prioritizing myself a lot more, and being able to do that, like, and not feel guilty about it, it's one of the best feelings ever. I guess like in Anthony's case, especially like that I'm like slowly getting back into it, is like being able to watch anime all day. That shit's fucking amazing. Like dead ass, like no cap. But yeah, anyone else?
I can go. Unfortunately, as much as I want to prioritize Circle K more, I can't say that I prioritize it over everything else. And I do feel guilty for taking breaks all the time because, as many of you guys know, I do a lot in my life outside of Circle K. And I don't know, I'm also that person that's like, I measure my like worth or my like happiness or whatever that like by my productivity and how much of like when I'm productive, how much I actually get done and succeed at. And I definitely play a huge game. Like I think I'm overly ambitious where I play this big game of what else can I fit on my plate? What else can I put on here? I didn't used to be like that, but I have been recently. So anytime I do take a break, I do feel guilty about it because it's like I have all of these things that I've committed to and that I genuinely care 110% about, but I can't put 110% of my effort into if I end up taking a break. So yeah, that's how it is for me.
Yeah. And then let's hear from maybe one or two more people. Maybe preferably like someone that hasn't already spoken.
I would say I prioritize Circle K over everything else. I tend to be, because I really enjoy my position, and it's just a way for me to express my creativity from all of the science and all my work in school. And so yeah, I would say prioritize Circle K. And I feel guilty when I take breaks because I do have a lot of things to do and I always think about them, even during my breaks. And so I feel guilty because I could be doing those instead. Yeah.
Awesome. And then one more person.
I can somewhat agree with Kyla. Like being like a STEM major, there's so much going on, and like Circle K, like it's kind of like a stress reliever for me in a way. So like I always sometimes like end up doing that instead of like what I'm supposed to be doing, like probably studying and such. So like I sometimes consider that as like my break, but like I do feel guilty for taking them because like, I feel like could be doing something else or more productive, or like I could possibly be falling behind it, something like that.
Yeah, and thank you for everyone that has shared so far. So, you know, of course, it's extremely important to be able to recognize that, like, you know, our emotions when it comes to taking breaks or like how we prioritize things. And that first step in recognition, again, is extremely important. But I think one of the things that is a lot harder to do, and something that a lot of people tend to gloss over, is like, you know, why are we feeling that way? Why are we feeling guilty? Or for those of you who might not feel guilty, you know, why don't we feel guilty for taking breaks? Wait, why? Yeah, yes, you know what I mean. And you know, like Anthony kind of touched upon it, where it's like, you know, for him, mental health is very important and whatnot. But maybe first, for those of you who don't feel guilty when you take breaks, why might you think that may be? If there's anyone else. You do deserve it.
I mean, I feel like I just learned, I feel like after going through it and like almost burning out, and like, you know, like Hannah was saying, like putting like 110 into it, like I think after like going into that pit, you realize that, you know, taking breaks and like really pacing yourself is like super important. Because sometimes it's gonna hurt you in the booty hole, and like that really did for me, because like honestly, like I prioritize CKI over everything else, and like I've been like, I guess, knowing that I've been doing that for like the past like 4 years, but I'm just like, just chill, like everything's gonna be okay until like I actually like didn't get into my major because I focused on CKI too much, and I said I was going to take a week break, and that never happened just because it was just like on my mind the whole time. So I think after that, like going to like that pit, like I realized that, you know, CKI isn't everything. Like, you know, if you don't get into your major, you don't freaking graduate college. Like, what's the use of like, you know, like being in CKI? So yeah, I guess that really like made me like rethink where I was at. And I still do like prioritize CKI over everything else, but I do like make sure that, you know, to reassess myself and like make sure I'm not like forgetting everything else in my life.
Yeah, I know, like for me personally, like I've been on both ends of the spectrum and in between. There's a whole gray area, but in terms of like not really feeling guilty for taking breaks, that's been more so something that's recent. And I think like now that I've had the freedom of being able to reevaluate like things in my life and really consider like why I should be taking care of myself and taking breaks and in between everything that I'm doing, my life has like, I'm like so much happier. I don't feel like the same level of stress every day. I don't feel the same level of like pressure in everything that I do. And I know that like, I really am. It's really humid up here in NorCal. Like it's really humid. But I know like, for me now, like I feel a lot more at ease, and I feel like I know that like if I'm on the brink of like not really wanting to do something, then I take a step back. I just kind of like sit down, maybe watch an episode or 2 or 5 or 10 of like Haikyuu, and you know, just gotta do what you gotta do for the day. Some days it looks more like some days it looks more like watching anime, or some days it looks more just like just laying in bed and like doing introspection or just sleeping. And then now just kind of like flipping the coin. For those of you who do feel guilty, you know, why is it that you feel guilty for taking breaks?
I mean, I'm actually on both ends of the spectrum for this. So feeling guilty, a lot of the times I just feel like I'm not doing enough to have a break. But then the like juxtaposition to that is then sometimes a break is necessary just to refresh yourself, because there's one thing to do work, but then there's also the quality of the work you're doing that matters as well. And so if you just keep forcing yourself to get things done, like just to get them done, it doesn't mean it's going to lead you to the results you want. So yeah, it's a nice internal battle between those two thought processes constantly.
Yeah, and it's never like something that's always like, I can finally know how to take breaks for the rest of my life. Oh no. It's, you know, you're always gonna kind of do that internal battle between everything you do. And, you know, being in college only right now, we're still navigating, we're still learning. And even as we get older and become hags, you know, we're still learning. And, you know, that feeling of like, oh, that feeling of like, always like, oh, like I should be doing more. I think that's like something that we all kind of go through. Definitely valid, and kind of have to figure out. And yeah, anyone else for why might you feel guilty?
All right, I'll answer this question to follow up with my last one. All right, since I'm a very community-driven person, I feel like what I do for other people is a reflection of myself. So if I am not there for people, I feel as though I am letting down not only those people, but in part myself. So it's hard to take breaks because Circle K is kind of different. Like, it is a club, but it also kind of feels like our entire life. Like, it's not. Circle K is definitely just a part of our life. It's not everything. And I think that's something that should be remembered, especially by me. But I guess it's hard because the people that you're interacting with are your very own friends. So when you remember at the end of the day, like, who you're doing this for, it's your friends. So at the same time, if you're taking breaks and you're not being there for them, it also feels the same way. You're also not being there for your friends. So it's hard to moderate between the two, but it is definitely important. Like, I really believe in the model, working hard and playing hard, because you need both in life to succeed and you need both in life to be happy. But finding that moderation, I feel like, is a lifelong journey.
Yeah. And let's hear from one more person.
I have something to add. I think another thing, like that cycle of like, okay, like for example, for me in comparison to Audrey, but not comparison because we don't like to compare all the time here. But like for me to see like other people in Circle K very, very driven and doing like above and beyond and not taking any breaks, then it makes me like, when I do take a break, that's when I'll feel guilty. Like, they're like doing the mostest, 127,000%. Like, they aren't taking breaks. So then it's almost like, why am I taking a break? Like, I shouldn't be taking a break. Like, this person's doing the mostest. And then it's just like a constant cycle of no one's taking a damn break, you know? So I think that's just another thing. Like, when you start comparing yourself to other people and what other people are doing, and you're just like, in this little circle of you don't deserve a break. So yeah.
Yeah, and so thank you everyone for sharing for this one. Definitely, like, you know, these aren't like questions where like the answer is like very straightforward and very like simple. These are very multifaceted questions, and for everyone, like, it's going to be different. We all experience and feel our emotions differently from maybe the person next to you, or in this case, the Zoom picture next to you. And for me personally, as I mentioned, like, I've been on both ends of the spectrum, where in a sense of like, when I did and do sometimes feel guilty for taking breaks, especially while I was a Circle K-er, it was a lot of like fear of like disappointing people, comparing myself to like maybe past like predecessors, or wanting to do more, and maybe in comparison to like a counterpart from another school, or maybe even just like not wanting to let ourselves down and feeling like we need to always be meeting the expectations of not only ourselves but other people. And oh God, I rambled so much I kind of like lost track. But for me, navigating that was always a huge difficult battle, especially like as lieutenant governor. And I'll always like go back to this because it's like the last thing I did. But during that time, like I would always kind of like ask myself, or not really ask, but like think to myself, like I don't really feel like I'm doing enough, or like I feel like the things that I do like aren't actually visible, and like I'm not getting the same kind of like recognition, or like the same kind of like gratification from like seeing my efforts be put into fruition. And I think more so towards the end of that term, I kind of felt like, you know, it was okay to feel all of that, but I also needed to kind of recognize like, you know, during that time, if I had just taken some time out of my day to kind of sit down and just chill out for once, maybe things could have been different. I wouldn't have felt as pressured. Maybe I wouldn't have felt as like as hard on myself, and maybe some things could have been different. And you know, there's no point in really dwelling on the past too much, and you know what things could have changed, things that could have been better. You know, what's happened has happened, and we want to learn from it. The next set of questions: what hurts your motivation, and you know, what roadblocks have you experienced, in more so in context of your term so far as board members?
COVID.
Yeah, COVID. This Rona's, she's pretty rough. I definitely felt it for a little bit when I was chair. Definitely like COVID was always like, oh, like there's so many things I've got to work around now. It's constantly just like innovating and like constantly thinking of like, how do we tackle this really unique situation? Yeah, what else?
I feel like that's the main thing. Like Zoom burnout is like super real. Like even right now, like we've been on the computer screen like for our board retreat for the longest time, and like people are getting tired of seeing each other through like the computer screen, or just like looking at their computer for like 10 hours. And like it's super hard to like hold events and stuff like that because, you know, it's kind of like the same routine of looking at your computer screen and doing an activity with people virtually.
Yeah, and just kind of like branching off of that idea of like, you know, COVID and like difficulties with planning events or hosting them. I guess like show of hands, or yeah, I guess show of hands, I don't know. How many of you have like felt kind of deterred from wanting to do something in Circle K because you kind of felt like, oh, like there's not really much of a point of it because no one's gonna really like go or like really participate because of COVID? Maybe use a raise hand feature for this, I don't know, or raise your actual hand. I really don't know, but yeah, it's definitely like, it's hard to kind of like give a definitive like, oh, it's okay, it'll be fine, because there's a lot of uncertainty that came with COVID-19 and quarantine, and you know, now we're in August and things aren't quite looking so hot for us in terms of like being able to meet in person again. And part of that is kind of like accepting the reality of what we have to work with. But that doesn't mean that we are helpless. We can kind of work around that as well, and continue to, you know, figure out like what we need to do. But besides like COVID, I guess, have there been any, for anyone, has there been any kind of like personal stressors that might have kind of killed your motivation or kind of prevented you from feeling like your best?
I will go for this again. All right. So personally, for me, I mean, my theme is basically that I am super relationship driven, right? So everything I do is because I do it for the people that I care about. So for me, when I feel like there is a lack of appreciation or a lack of recognition, it makes me not want to do anything, like straight up. Yeah, because if you feel like the people that you're trying to do stuff for don't care about your work or don't appreciate you as a person, you're not going to want to do it. There's no like real deeper level behind that besides it hurts. I think it is really important to appreciate people as equally as you roast them. Like I love roasting people. I love jokes. Our club is a very I feel like we're a very close knit club, but I feel like at the end of the day, we also need to recognize that each person, no matter who they are, as cheesy as it is human. And because we're human, we're going to feel those emotions. So something as simple as a thank you for whatever they've done, something as simple as saying, are you okay? Or, if you need help on something, let me know. I feel like that means a lot. I think it really is the small acts that really make a difference for everyone. So yeah.
Yeah, and definitely recognition is a huge portion of what drives us to do the stuff that we do, and especially within Circle K. And I always still kind of feel like, there's recognition you member of the month, or board member of the month and stuff. But for me personally, that has never had the same kind of magnitude or effect as someone coming up to me and saying Andy or Audrey, I really appreciate you for everything you've done. You've always put it, you're 100% in everything. These things that I wish I would hear more. But it's those kind of things, and they really do make a big difference, even if it's just out of the blue or kind of random. But yeah, anything else? Anyone else want to share?
For me, a huge roadblock is or something that hurts my motivation is getting to know people with Corona around. Sometimes I used to feel very devoid of relationships because even before Corona, I never really webcammed or FaceTimed anyone or used my laptop that much to interact with people online. It was more of face to face. So when Rona hit and everything went online, I found it to be people were there, CKI board was always there online, but I was just never used to being on camera or being on the online format because I never done it before with friends and others. So it felt super uncomfortable to be in front of a camera and talking to everyone instead of my usual, which is I go to school, I get to interact with everyone face to face, and I get to go home and chill. But now it's you can chill whenever, but I'm just not used to be online format, Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of us we need that physical interaction to kind of feel our social battery, and to kind of feel I guess a sense of belonging in terms of the community, and not that Zoom is the worst alternative. It's kind of one of the only things that we have to work with right now. But for everyone, that's not something that is the most ideal situation, and it's perfectly okay to not really want to spend that much time on Zoom or even really want to use it. But yeah, let's do one more person.
I think other responsibilities kind of hurt my motivation, work per se, because after you're done with work, you're tired and you don't really want to do that much. So everything feels kind of more everything feels a lot more tiring, especially if you're already tired and then you go to work and you're even more tired. So it definitely hurts my motivation because you just don't want to do that much. I definitely see a difference between me before I worked and after I started working. I didn't attend as many socials, as many interclubs, or able to attend the service events that I wanted to go to because it's during the hours that I do have work. So it hurts my like participation, I guess. And even though I do want to like do stuff.
Yeah, not much to say about that one other than like, yeah, work can be kind of like a pain sometimes, especially because like, you come home, long day, like physical and mental fatigue. You just kind of want to like be potato. Um, it's okay. Um, maybe something also to consider for everyone. I think there's a lot of discussion about like, I guess tangible things or I guess objective things or external. There you go. External stressors that kind of like hurt your motivation. But in the sense of like what may hurt your motivation is how many of you guys are like just too hard on yourselves? Like you're just so critical of like everything you do, and you always kind of feel like, oh, I could have been better. What could have been, blah, 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 like all that kind of stuff. It's okay. But yeah, it's definitely like, some of us or maybe a lot of us, we may have the tendency to just kind of like be super, super critical on ourselves. And that can kind of hurt your motivation in the long run and just always kind of being like, oh, kind of developing like a sense of like being too timid to want to do something because you kind of feel like it might not work out or, so and so. And the last set of questions I have is kind of building off of that and what do the expectations that you set on yourself look like, and how have these expectations been met, and are they encouraging or are they discouraging? Anyone? Let's hear from someone that hasn't spoken yet. There's quite a few of you. Anyone at all? If not, I'm gonna pick someone. Oh, Olivia. Miss Chang.
What?
Where are you gonna go?
No, I was telling you to call them out.
Oh, okay. Let's go with Ricardo.
I'm actually trying to think of the answer for this one, because I feel like in my position specifically, motivation is something that I have to spare to everyone, because it's basically my duty to make sure everyone else stays motivated. So my expectations are more based on the productivity of others. So I feel like if the board is not doing well, then I'm not doing my job correctly. So the expectations are more based on like everyone else instead. So the pressure is probably felt more of not me putting pressure on myself, but feeling like I'm supposed to be having this pressure for the rest of the board's sake, or else I'm not doing my job correctly. But the way everyone's been handling the situation and stuff, it's actually been putting me at ease. So it's pretty encouraging the way everyone is functioning right now in this pandemic. So on that level, I feel like expectations are being met.
Awesome. And yeah, and I'll say like from an outsider perspective and also like from things I might hear from like Olivia, you guys are honestly like pretty amazing. You guys do so much. Like with this in this current pandemic, I would not do anything. But like just kind of seeing like you guys post on like Facebook or just hearing things, you guys are doing a really great job, and I have to commend all of you for that. So yeah. Anyone else would like to share? I guess just as like a maybe like another example for anyone who wants to share. Ooh, it's okay. Yeah, just kind of like a kind of another example of like maybe something to consider is like when I was on board or lieutenant governor or whatever, my expectations for myself were always just like, I need to do the most, the absolute most. No one can top me. I need to be the best in this whole district. And that's just kind of like how I am. I'm very like competitive. And even if there's no like real competition, not that the, oh, that sounds so bad. Anyways, my expectations for myself were always just like, if I wasn't like doing everything to come up with like new things or to be, I guess, more innovative in comparison to other people, the whole comparison thing, very toxic. It was always just kind of like, I'd be very hard on myself. And I think always towards the end of my terms, sorry, English is hard. The end of my terms, like I would always kind of feel like, oh yeah, like I think those expectations were met. But I think like in the moment when you're kind of experiencing that kind of mental frustration, then, you know, you might not always believe like you're doing what you can, or you're not really meeting like the expectations that you have for yourself. And you know, we will kind of fluctuate between like things being encouraging or things being kind of discouraging. And that's okay. But yeah, that's kind of like an example. Does anyone else want to share?
Bro, I don't even know if I have expectations for myself. I feel like I'm a fucking dreamer. Like every day at work, everywhere, I just keep dreaming. Like I remember during church, I would dream that like a monster would come and destroy church while I'm in it, and like shit like that. Like that shit can't happen. Like those aren't expectations, you know? Like Jesus Christ, I don't know what the fuck I expect myself to do, and it's like super fucking bad because like I never live up to anything I want to do because like I don't want to do anything. Like the only reason why like I like doing board is because I love Circle K, but I fucking I don't know what I expect from myself. I don't know what the hell what the hell I'm doing.
Yeah, and that's 110% okay. You know, honestly, straight vibing. Just you're doing you, doing what you gotta do, thinking about monsters in church. That's all good. um, yeah, honestly it's okay to like not always have expectations for yourself, and maybe even like sometimes that might be a little more helpful. But I think with everything in life, there's always like that need to kind of find a balance between like having too high of expectations or not really like, expecting that much of yourself. But yeah, anything else? Anyone else? Guy, if you would like to share.
So in terms of like expectations for my position, I feel like I had a lot, and I think I met some of them in terms of like laying the groundworks for them, like diversifying our awards being presented. I feel like that's the one that I really laid the groundworks for, even like before I came into my term. I always thought about changing it to those things, and like with the help of the board and their opinion, I was able to kind of make it like a reality that's gonna happen like in a few weeks. So we'll see. But I think like one of the expectations that I haven't really met is this side of the family system that I'm a part of this year, which I didn't expect. But I think I'm trying to still figure out what my expectations for for that part is. I feel like it's okay to not have expectations like um, like of the future. I think it's okay to like still look for it in the present, and that's kind of what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's great. And you know, like you guys still have like a whole lot of time left until the end of your term. I know like around this time of the year, I was kind of like getting really excited. I was like, oh my God, I'm almost done. Still have a long way, trust me. Fall hits like a bus. It's gonna hit you hard. But definitely like as we kind of move into the latter half of this term, you know, our expectations for ourselves and things that we need to do, you know, will constantly be changing. We'll always be reconsidering how maybe we might expect one thing to turn out, or what we might need to do, and that's honestly like totally fine. That's, you know, what we need to do in order to maintain like a very healthy mindset and to allow ourselves to kind of adjust and adapt more fluidly. And so that's like the bulk of like all the questions and stuff. But before we move into like just really quick like tips and my own personal advice on how to mitigate burnout, one of the things is that, you know, there's a lot of discussion that we just did about, you know, what is motivation, what is burnout, what is what makes us feel all these different things, and that's part of navigating motivation burnout. We all feel these two things very differently from one another, and how we approach them and how we handle them is going to be different from person to person. And you know, we can't expect the same formula and the same recipe every single time to be, again, applicable to every single person. And so, you know, as your term kind of progresses, maybe think back to these questions and think like, you know, if you find yourself in a moment where you're not feeling as motivated, you know, think about what might be hurting you, what's causing you to feel that way, or if you're like feeling really like great and whatnot, it's still okay to introspect, kind of think like, you know, like I'm really glad like X, Y, and Z happened. Those are all really great ways of navigating through motivation and burnout, and being able to navigate through our own emotions and really sort out what it is we're feeling and how to approach it and how to properly handle it, rather than I think most of us have the tendency to do is to kind of sweep it under the rug and kind of think like, I'll think about it tomorrow. I know for me personally, when I was in Circle K, is always that like, again, really emphasizing the whole like everything else came first before myself, and that get like that healing process and that like navigation was always something that I was always kind of like, you know, I think I'm straight chilling, and you kind of get to a point where you're kind of like, you know, I really wasn't, and that's okay. You can take the time to grow and to learn, unlearn things as time progresses. And then again, just some really quick tips for mitigating burnout. One of the main things is time management. So a lot of us kind of discussed like how we prioritize things and how we might prioritize different things that we need to do in the day. And so for me personally, one of the things I did a lot during my first and second year of college was I was huge on bullet journaling. Wasn't great at it for like the artsy aspect, but more so for the fact that like it was like my calendar, my daily calendar, so that I knew what I needed to get done. And in terms of like just maintaining like an organized calendar / to-do list, it was so helpful, and like just scheduling everything in advance. For me, like when I did my bullet journal, like I would plan my months in advance. Like I did the whole month, and then like maybe like a week or two before each week, I would plan the weeks, and then I would do the days. And on days like where I'm like feeling really anxious or really like stressed, I get a little crazy. I plan everything down like to the hour, even like my breaks and like breathing. Maybe not breathing, that's an exaggeration. But like I would plan things down to like the hour, like sometime in like towards the end of winter quarter, like it was like 3 to 4 o'clock, work on essay, 4 to 6, do whatever, and then like 6 to 7, eat dinner. I was very strict about it because I knew like if I wasn't, I would not get anything done. And it just kind of comes with like procrastination and stuff, and you know what I'm really prioritizing. And when it comes to that, prioritizing the completion of hot items by completing them as soon as possible is extremely crucial. So if you have like an essay that's due in like 3 days, I think your Circle K work can wait. And just kind of like sort out like, okay, like I really need to get this done by this date. If I don't, then these are the repercussions. You know, what can wait, what can't, is extremely important. For me, like when I was doing like my internship while doing like CSULB CKI work and like work and like school, you know, everything got super hectic. And so my prioritization always looked like, okay, I'm gonna do my internship stuff first, and then I'm gonna do school, and then, well, it was actually, it was internship, then CSULB CKI, then school, and then breaks. And what really came in handy was that like that weekly spread of what I'm doing every single day, because I can kind of like block out specific times to work on projects over a longer period of time, rather than just kind of like dedicating like a single day. For me, that personally doesn't really work too well, just because I get really like antsy. And so like I would say maybe for like when I'm planning on how I'm going to approach like an essay, I'll do like, I'll work on intro on Monday, I'll work on paragraphs 2 and 3 on Tuesday, and just kind of so forth like that. And then work ethic. Procrastination is literally your worst enemy. We kind of talked about this earlier, but I always like hear this argument, and like I can't say that like I'm not guilty of using it. I keep using essays just because like it's like the main thing I'm thinking about, because I have one due next week and I still haven't done it. See, but like the whole like diamonds are made under pressure argument is like, it's so bad for you. And I kind of changed like this line when I was like editing this presentation, but like you just want to get everything done in advance as soon as you can. That's realistic, because I will say, if you live under this mentality of diamonds are made under pressure, you will look like a hag by the time you're 25. And I'm not even kidding. It's because all the stress you're putting on your body, you're gonna get wrinkles, your face isn't gonna look good, all that skincare, honey, it's not gonna work. Stress is a huge portion. Stress is a huge portion of our physical health and our mental health as well. And no, you don't look like a hag. You look great. And I mentioned it earlier, but like the whole like all or nothing mentality is like, it's also something that's very toxic, and not the most healthy way to approach things, because and I think some of you guys mentioned like giving your 100% or giving like your 120% everything that you do is more likely to cause you burnout. You know, let's consider like if you're putting 100% into everything, into one single thing, you know, you're not allocating the same amount of effort into other aspects of your life, whether it's your relationships with people, your school, yourself, things like that. And you know, consider maybe rescaling things. So if we were to kind of just categorize like work and school and CSULB CKI out one-to-one category, then maybe giving like 80 to 90%, and reserving that last 10 to 20% to focus on yourself and your own needs and your relationships with the people around you. Extremely, extremely important. And then self-care. You know, self-care is more than just like putting on a face mask every Sunday. Because let me tell you, that face mask, it's not gonna hide your problems. And I've been guilty of being there. I always had like that face mask Sunday, send it on Snapchat and be like, I feel good. You know, your face might feel good for like 20 minutes before you take it off. But you still need to tend to the actual bulk of what self-care is, and that's like the mental portion. Really tackling like our inner turmoil and what's really bothering us and why that might be bothering us. And I really have to stress that like the whole like romanticization, you know what I mean, of like not taking care of yourself. It's like one of the other things is it's extremely toxic, and it really like builds into this preconceived notion that like productivity should dominate our routines and our life. And you know, there's always a lot more going on than just what we need to get done. In fact, I really do believe that like what we do need to get done is just a small portion of our everyday needs. Of course, I'm not saying, again, don't procrastinate, don't leave things off to the last minute. But that whole like, I'm not going to eat because I have so much work to do, guilty of it, definitely. But it's, again, very, very unhealthy. And in terms of like self-care as well, reaching out to people is a huge thing. Utilizing your support systems, whether that's talking to your board or your closest friends, just ranting about something that's bothering you, or sharing like your victories and things you're really proud of. That's extremely important in our mental well-being, and especially increasing our motivation, because the more time that we allow for negative emotions to fester and build, especially because if we're bottling it up, the more likely you are to kind of hurt more long term, and to have to spend more time later on navigating those issues and figuring out why it is you might have to unlearn some negative behaviors. And yeah, so I'll open the floor for any questions, comments, and concerns. If not,
What's a bullet journal?
Oh, a bullet journal. It's basically
Is that
like
the grid, the one with the grid of dots?
Yeah, so there's different kinds of journals you can buy and stuff, but basically like what a bullet journal is, it's like an artsy way of like it's an adult diary.
I think I have one.
Yeah. It's the different ways of like, people kind of use it differently. So for me personally, again, like I use it as like a calendar. But other people, like they use it for more of like a creative outlet, and like making different kinds of spreads and that kind of stuff. Hannah's showing like an example, looks really good. Mine definitely not the same scale. But yeah, it's like a creative way of like, it's a creative to-do list, creative calendar, creative diary. Yeah, any other questions, comments, concerns?
Andy, while you're here, can you talk about the importance of staying hydrated and drinking a lot of water?
Yes. I do not drink enough water.
You only drink Coke.
Oh yeah.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
yeah. Hey Andy, I'm in the same boat.
Like Jonathan.
Actually, it's Pepsi. Anyways.
Oh, okay.
Pepsi.
Wait, I don't think I can talk to you then. No, I'm kidding. I drink Pepsi too.
No, it's just because at Riverside, we're sponsored by Pepsi, so everything is like Pepsi.
You get free
so I just kinda
Pepsi?
used to it. No.
You get free
Like,
soda?
Wish. Shit.
Dude, if you got free Pepsi, I would totally try to transfer.
just for the soda.
You
Staying
would.
hydrated, very important. I am anemic, and that's a large portion of that is because I don't drink water, and I don't take care of myself.
What's anemic again?
That's like a low iron levels. Yeah, so drinking water is really important. It helps mitigate like headaches. If you're very focused on skin, your skin needs water. It really needs water. For me personally, when it comes to like my own skin, if I'm breaking out like on my forehead or here, I know that I'm not drinking enough water. If you pee and it's like yellow, like that's like a huge sign. Like please drink more water. Especially now that like I think also like SoCal's in a heat wave. Although it's honestly just kind of always hot there. In heat, like you're sweating more, you're getting rid of more moisture, more water out of your body, and so you need to be able to replenish that so your body can do its basic functions. Again, like your body is literally made of water, and if you don't have enough, then it's not sustainable. You're gonna run into issues. For me, like I get really lightheaded because of it. If I like stand up too fast or like other things as well. Yeah,
Bro,
drink
I know
water.
what you mean. A lot of times when I stand up, my vision like fades, but I
Yeah.
just gotta find something to lean on for a couple seconds, and that's fine.
Ooh.
This is not something you guys should be bonding over.
This is
Blink
I
a
get
bit.
you.
Just do a few
My
blinks.
my P's are like never clear.
No.
Jonathan sent a picture one time, and you could see his entire vein from his arm.
Hey, that was because
Yeah,
I was wearing a
hot.
scrunchie,
Mhm.
and the scrunchie was on my wrist, so it was cutting off my blood flow.
But Scrunchy shouldn't be able to do that.
Jonathan's too buff. He's too
Yeah, really
buff,
though.
bro.
Got the gains. But yeah, drink water. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns? If not,
If your
this is
school
my
is
contact.
sponsored by Pepsi, do you also get like all the other Pepsi sodas like Mountain Dew and?
Yeah, they sell all that stuff on campus.
Oh shoot!
Yeah.
Sounds
So like,
nice.
I had like dining dollars while I was on campus because I lived on campus. I had a campus apartment, and so I technically get my soda for free and like other snacks and stuff.
That's nice.
So it's pretty worth
Wait,
it.
is our school the same way? Do we have that too? I have no clue.
But yeah, here's my contact information. You can contact me through here. Probably the best way is just contact me through Facebook. Always open, always available for questions and stuff. If you're too timid to contact me, you can go through Olivia. You guys already saw like my own credentials and my experience with Circle K. I do graphic design as my own current freelancing profession. I study law. I do psychology. Was briefly the MD need chair, so I have a lot of knowledge on all that stuff. So if you guys have literally anything you need help on, always available, always willing to help. But yeah. All right.
Thank you, Andy, for hosting this workshop. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have
Andy.
Thank
fun.
you,
Good luck with
Andy.
everything.
You.
Hopefully he didn't preach any resignation.